Hello my dear students. In this lecture I will discuss about uterine fibroids such as its definition, incidence, types, causes, symptoms, diagnosis, investigation and its treatment. So before moving towards the topic, guys, I just first want to say that if you will find my video useful, then please give a valuable comments as well as like the video, and if you are new at my channel, then please subscribe to my channel for getting the regular updates. Now moving back towards the topic, that is uterine fibroids. It is also known as myoma, uterine myoma, fibromyoma and leiomyomas. These three are the synonyms of uterine fibroids. First, its definition, that what is uterine fibroids? Its first definition is uterine fibroid is a benign non-cancerous tumor. What is benign non-cancerous tumor? Means it does not grow into cancer or it does not metastasize or spread to the other parts of the body. So uterine fibroid is a benign tumor that originates from the smooth muscle layer of the uterus. As uterus has 3 layers, so which one is a smooth muscle layer? That is myometrium, which is the middle layer of the uterus. So uterine fibroid is a benign tumor that originates from the middle layer of the uterus, which is known as myometrium. Its another definition is uterine fibroids are non-cancerous growth of the uterus that often appears during childbearing years. So uterine fibroids are mostly occurs during the childbearing years. So what do you mean by childbearing years? The years when the woman can get pregnant and bear children. It starts from puberty till menopause, that is from 12 to 51 years. Next, there are certain important key points about uterine fibroids. First one is uterine fibroids are not associated or related with an increased risk of uterine cancer. Means the uterine fibroids does not increases the risk of having uterine cancer and almost never develop into cancer. As the uterine fibroids are benign in nature, so it almost never becomes malignant. Next is its size, which ranges from a seedling, means as much small that even a human eye cannot detect it, to a bulky masses. Bulky means large masses that can distort or change the shape of the uterus and enlarges it. So when the size of the fibroid is 10 cm or more than 10 cm, it is known as a large fibroid. Next is the number of uterine fibroids. So there may be a single fibroid or maybe there are multiple ones, and in the severe cases or in the extreme cases when there are multiple fibroids present in the uterus, it leads to the expansion of the uterus as much that it can even reaches to the rib cage and puts pressure on the other organs and can even add up the weight approximately 20 to 40 pounds in the abdomen. Next are the incidence of uterine fibroids, such as the chances of having uterine fibroids is 20 to 40% among all the women who are in their reproductive age. Next are the types of uterine fibroids, which are very important. There are mainly 3 types of uterine fibroids. Let's just first see the diagram. As the uterus is having 3 layers, the outer one is perimetrium, the middle one is myometrium, and the innermost is endometrium. And the uterine fibroids originates from the myometrium. So as I earlier said, the uterine fibroids are of 3 types, that are intramural, subserosal and submucosal. When the fibroid grow inside the smooth muscle layer or myometrium, that is known as intramural. And when the fibroid grow towards outside the uterus, that is known as subserosal, and this is one of the common type. And when the fibroid is grow into the open space which is present inside the uterus, that is known as submucosal. So these are the 3 types of uterine fibroids. And here you can see the fibroid is growing towards outside, so that's why it is known as subserosal. But here you can see the stem is present, stem or stalk is present, that's why it is known as pedunculated subserosal. And in this case you can see the fibroid is growing into the open space inside the uterus with the stem That's why it is known as pedunculated submucosal. Next are the causes of uterine fibroids. There are various causes or factors which may cause uterine fibroids, but the genetic changes and the hormones plays an important role in causing uterine fibroids. The other factors or causes are certain growth factors, extracellular matrix, family history, and pregnancy. And I'm going to discuss all these one by one in detail. So first one is genetic changes, which actually plays a vital role in causing fibroids. There are certain chromosomal abnormalities which causes fibroids. First one is translocations or shifting of chromosomes, that is the chromosome number 12 and the 14. Here you can see the chromosomes before translocation, and here in the diagram B you can see the chromosomes after shifting or translocation. Here the shifting of the chromosomes occur, which might lead to fibroids. Next is the deletion or the absence of 7th chromosome might causes fibroids. Next is trisomy. When the 3 chromosomes are present instead of 2 in a pair, that is trisomy 12th chromosome, might lead to fibroids. Next cause is hormones and pregnancy. Under hormones, there are 2 hormones which are involved in causing uterine fibroids, such as estrogen and progesterone. These both hormones during each menstrual cycle stimulate the development of uterine lining. So as a result, it promotes the growth of fibroids, as the fibroids contain more estrogen and progesterone receptors. So these both hormones are involved in causing uterine fibroids. And during pregnancy, the secretion of these both hormones is increased. That's why the chances of having uterine fibroids is more during pregnancy. Next cause is extracellular matrix. It is actually a material which binds the cells together. So it is a material that makes cells stick together, and it is found that excessive ECM causes uterine fibroids. Another cause is certain growth factors such as transforming growth factor beta 1, beta 2 and beta 3 promotes the ECM, that is extracellular matrix, which as a result causes uterine fibroids. Next is family history. If the woman is having the family history of uterine fibroids, then she is at more risk, such as if her mother or sister or her grandmother is having uterine fibroids, then she is at more risk of having uterine fibroids. Next is pregnancy. During pregnancy, the hormones such as estrogen and progesterone levels are increasing. That's why the woman is at more risk of having uterine fibroids during pregnancy. Next are risk factors. First one is race. The uterine fibroids are more common among black women. Next one is onset of menstruation at an early age might increases the risk of having uterine fibroids. Next is obesity. The women, those are obese, are having increased level of estrogen, which as a result may causes uterine fibroids. Next is decreased levels of vitamin D. It is believed that the vitamin D is having anti-tumor effect, which decreases the risk of having uterine fibroids. But if its levels are less, then it increases the chances of having uterine fibroids. Next is drinking alcohol. It is believed that it causes hormonal imbalance, such as it increases the level of estrogen, which as a result causes uterine fibroids. Next is diet. If the diet is lower in green vegetables, fruits and dairy, then it might increase the risk of having uterine fibroids. Next are the symptoms of uterine fibroids. The symptoms actually depends upon 3 things. That is the number of tumors, its location, as well as its size. For example, the submucosal fibroids, the fibroids which actually grows towards inside of the uterus, may cause heavy menstrual bleeding as well as trouble in conceiving. And if the tumor is smaller in size, the woman may not have any kind of symptoms. Plus, if the woman is going through menopause, then also the woman may not have any kind of symptom, as after the menopause the hormonal level is dropped. As a result, the fibroid is shrink, becomes smaller in size. So that's why the woman is not having any kind of symptom. In the case of uterine fibroids, 50% of cases remain asymptomatic, while only 50% of cases shows symptoms. And the cases remain asymptomatic due to the smaller size of the fibroid, such as less than 4 cm. And the 50% of cases shows symptoms such as abnormal uterine bleeding. Under this, menorrhagia, metorrhagia, purulent discharge, and polymenorrhagia. What is menorrhagia? When the duration of menstrual period is more than normal, plus when there is an excessive blood flow during menstrual period, and it is mostly occur in the intramural and the submucosal uterine fibroids. Intramural fibroids, when the fibroids grows inside the myometrium, and the submucosal fibroids, when the fibroid is growing towards inside of the uterus. Next is metorrhagia, when the uterine bleedings occur even in between the menstrual periods, and it is also occurs during submucosal uterine fibroids. In the case of submucosal uterine fibroids, there are the chances of heavy menstrual bleeding. Plus, it also causes infertility. Next is purulent discharge. So when the purulent discharge occur, when the fibroids becomes infected fibroid polyp. So what is the difference between fibroid and polyp? This is actually important. Fibroid actually originates from the myometrium, while the polyps originates from the innermost layer of the uterus, that is endometrium. The fibroids become rarely infected, but it happens when there is already an infection in that area. Then the fibroids gets infected, it results in purulent discharge. Next is polymenorrhagia, when the menstruation or the menstrual period occur frequently. Normally, the menstrual cycle is of 28 days, but in the case of polymenorrhagia, the menstrual cycle is become 21 days or less than 21 days. So the menstrual period occurs more frequently. That is known as polymenorrhagia, and it occurs in the case of uterine fibroids. Next is pain. Chronic pelvic pain or the lower back pain occurs in the case of uterine fibroids. Next are pressure symptoms. As in the case of uterine fibroids, the uterus become enlarged, so it puts pressure on the other organs. As a result, pressure symptoms occurs. First one is retention of urine. That is when the woman is unable to pass urine. Now why the woman is unable to pass urine? Because of the blockage of the ureters by the enlarged uterus. Now what are ureters? These are the tubes which passes the urine from the kidneys to the urinary bladder. When the ureters are blocked, the urine is accumulated inside the ureters. As a result, the ureters become enlarged, and that condition is known as hydroureter. And when the ureters are blocked, the urine is not only accumulated inside the ureters but also inside the kidneys. As a result, the kidneys become enlarged, and that condition is known as hydronephrosis. So due to the blockage of ureters, the urine is not drained into the urinary bladder. As a result, the woman is unable to pass urine. Next is constipation. Because of the enlarged uterus, sometimes the intestine is blocked or obstructed. That condition is known as intestinal obstruction. And because of intestinal obstruction, the woman is unable to pass stools. Next is infertility. Sometimes due to the uterine fibroids, the fallopian tubes are obstructed or blocked. As a result, the fertilization is not possible, which leads to infertility. Next is abdominal lump. So due to the large uterine fibroids or due to the many uterine fibroids, the uterus become enlarged. As a result, the lump or the fibroid is felt abdominally. Next is secondary to anemia. So due to the abnormal uterine bleeding or due to the excessive blood loss, the anemia might occur. Next are the diagnosis of uterine fibroids. Under this, first one is general physical examination, which reveals the patient may have the paler skin tone because of the anemia, which occurs due to the heavy menstrual bleeding. Next is abdominal examination, which reveals a firm or a hard, non-tender means not stretched, either rounded or lobulated. This is the lobulated shape. Mass with side to side mobility means a hard, non-tender, either rounded or lobulated mass which can able to move from one side to the another side. Next is percussion, that is with the help of tapping movement on the abdomen, it is revealed that there is a swelling which is dull in nature, means slight in nature. Next is pelvic examination. Under this, the bimanual examination is done. Bimanual means the examination which is done by using both hands. So it reveals that in the case of subserosal uterine fibroids, there is an asymmetrical enlargement of the uterus occur, while in the case of intramural and in the case of submucosal uterine fibroids, the symmetrical enlargement of the uterus occurs. Now, what is the difference between both? As in the case of subserosal fibroids, the fibroid is growing towards outside the uterus. So in this case, the uterus become enlarged, but its shape will be abnormal. That is known as asymmetrical enlargement of the uterus. While in the case of intramural and submucosal fibroids, as in this case, intramural case, the fibroid is growing inside the myometrium, while in the case of submucosal fibroid, the fibroid is growing towards inside the uterus. So in both these cases, the uterus become enlarged, but its shape will be remained normal. So that's why it is known as symmetrical enlargement of the uterus. So the pelvic examination helps to find the type of fibroids, that which type of fibroids are present inside the uterus, that whether it is intramural, submucosal or subserosal. Next, there are certain investigations which are usually performed in the case of uterine fibroids. First one is CBC, that is complete blood count, in order to assess the blood loss which occurs due to the abnormal uterine bleeding or in order to assess any infection. Next is blood grouping and RH incompatibility. In case of huge blood loss, if blood transfusion is needed, then these investigations are necessary before blood transfusion. Next is urine routine in order to assess the urine output, as there are the chances of retention of urine due to the blockage of the ureters because of the uterine fibroids. Next is an abdominal, transvaginal or pelvic ultrasound in order to detect the location and the size of the uterine fibroids. Next is an endometrial biopsy. In this, a small tissue is taken from the endometrium as a sample in order to detect any abnormal tissues such as fibroids, polyps or any infection. Next is hysteroscopy in order to view the uterus with the help of an instrument, that is hysteroscope, in order to detect the size and the location of the uterine fibroids. Next is hysterosalpingography. This is a special type of X-ray which is done with the help of a dye. In this, the hystero word is related to uterus and salpingo word is related to fallopian tubes. So with the help of this type of X-ray, the uterus is assessed for its shape. As in the case of uterine fibroids, there are the chances of changes or distortion in the shape of the uterus. So in this hysterosalpingography, the one thing which is assessed, that is the shape of the uterus, and the second one is the patency or the openness of the fallopian tubes, that whether the fallopian tubes are open or it is obstructed. Next is laparoscopy in order to view the abdominal organs with the help of an instrument which is known as laparoscope. Next is MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, is done in order to detect the location and the size of uterine fibroids. Next is the treatment of uterine fibroids. Most fibroids do not require treatment unless they are causing symptoms. And after menopause, the fibroids usually shrink because of the drop in the level of hormones, and it is unusual for them to cause any problems. So after the menopause, the fibroids shrink and it does not cause any problem or any symptoms, so it does not require any treatment. The symptomatic uterine fibroids can be treated by medications to control symptoms, medications in order to shrink the tumors, myomectomy or radiofrequency ablation, hysterectomy and uterine artery embolization. I'll discuss all these one by one in detail. First of all, the medications which are used to treat the uterine fibroids. Under this, first one is NSAIDs, that is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. These are administered to reduce the painful menstrual periods. Next is carbapenem. This is a drug which is used to shrink the fibroids effectively. Next is ulipristal acetate. It is basically a synthetic selective progesterone receptor modulator, specifically antagonist. It blocks the progesterone receptors. As the progesterone and estrogen plays an important role in causing uterine fibroids, so by blocking the progesterone receptors, fibroids are treated with low side effects. Next is danazol. This is a drug which lowers the estrogen level, and when the estrogen level is dropped, the size of the fibroids will shrink and the symptoms will be controlled. Next are gonadotropin releasing hormone analogs. These drugs decreasing the estrogen level as it puts the body into the state like menopause for as long as you take it. So as a result, it shrinks the size of the fibroids. Next is progesterone antagonist. The one progesterone antagonist I already discussed, that is ulipristal acetate. So this one is mifepristone. It relieves some symptoms. Next is aromatase inhibitors. To reduce the fibroids, it actually reduces the estrogen levels. How it reduces the estrogen level? The women are also having small amount of androgens, means testosterone. So the androgenic substances converted into estrogen with the help of an enzyme, that is aromatase. But this aromatase inhibitors inhibit this enzyme. As a result, it prevents the androgenic substances converting into estrogen, which leads to reduce in the estrogen levels. As a result, the size of the fibroids will shrink. After the medications, next under the treatment is myomectomy. It is basically a surgical procedure which is done to remove one or more fibroids. There are three types of myomectomy, that is hysteroscopic, laparoscopic and laparotomic. So going with the first one, that is hysteroscopic, which is also known as transcervical resection. What is the meaning of transcervical? It means through the cervix. And what is resection? That is cut the tissues such as fibroids. In this, an endoscopic instrument or a hysteroscope is inserted through the vagina and the cervix and then use high frequency electrical energy to cut the tissues. The next type is laparoscopic. Under this, the small incision is made near the navel or near the umbilicus, and then insert the laparoscope through that small incision in order to view the fibroids. And then the surgical instrument is used to remove the fibroids. Next is laparotomic, which is also known as open or abdominal myomectomy. This is the most invasive surgical procedure among all the three to remove fibroids. In this, the physician make an incision in the abdominal wall and remove the fibroids from the uterus. Next is radiofrequency ablation. It is minimally invasive treatments for fibroids. In this, a needle-like device is inserted into the fibroid through abdomen and then provide heat with radiofrequency electrical energy, and that heat will cause necrosis of the cells, or it kills the cells. As a result, fibroids will shrink. Next is hysterectomy. It is a surgical procedure in which the uterus is removed, and it is the last option in the case of uterine fibroids. Next is uterine artery embolization. In this, the blood vessels are blocked. It is a non-invasive procedure that blocks the blood flow to the fibroids. As a result, uterine fibroids will shrink. That's all about uterine fibroids. I hope you all are clear with this topic, but still, my dear students, if you have any kind of query, then please ask me in the comment section. I will definitely answer your queries.